Should we get a little more light? Those who know how to turn it on. Tonight we'll finish up on the basics of sitting meditation. We've gone through the essential posture, and I think everybody's clear about that. There didn't seem to be any questions about what to do with the arms, legs, and so forth. And then last week we went through the breathing techniques and talked about the dhyana or chan breathing. And tonight, I'll spend a little time going over the mental training, or the more difficult part of this. What do you do with the monkey mind? Because that's really the purpose of the sitting meditation, is to create a posture and a breathing that lays the foundation of a kind of grounded stillness, if you will, that then permits a closer look at what's called mind or consciousness. The words for it vary. Sometimes it's called vipassana or shamatha vipassana. Sometimes it's referred to in different ways, different styles, as chan or dhyana or zen. The text here uses dhyana, pretty much, the Sanskrit term. To say something about it, see, when we say contemplation or meditation, it kind of covers it, but again, contemplation and meditation can sometimes imply the idea that you're looking into a topic, you're investigating a question. People say contemplate on something, and you have this very, maybe even intense consideration of a question or an issue. You're contemplating a change in career. We use that, and therefore you're doing a very busy mental activity of cost-benefit analysis and trying to get a handle on all the variables. And sometimes even meditation is considered to meditate upon something. But in this tradition, it's quite different than those meanings, and that's why I would prefer to use dhyana or chan, as they imply something closer to stilling the mind, or settling thoughts, or stilling thoughts. And it's sort of counterintuitive, or it's paradoxical. What the theory behind it is there is a capacity of the mind that's vast and great, and really very powerful in terms of what it can encompass, what it's able to see, what it's able to manifest, and what it's able to become, which is Buddha, awakened. Now, almost ironically, the way that happens is not through an activation of the mind to get busy and to acquire, to grasp even knowledge, but rather, almost paradoxically, its full power, full capacity is said to open up of its own when there's no encumbrances, no attachments, no grasping. There's just pure, still awareness. And this means, sometimes it's called, in different ways of referring to, as learning by subtraction is one phrase they use. They say, so in the ordinary way, when you want to acquire knowledge or insight, you Google it, and then you download a whole bunch of information. It's the way you study for exams. You acquire information, knowledge, data. You try to hold it till the exam. You burp it up, and to the extent that you burp it up in order in a certain amount of quantity, you get a grade. Meditation is learning by subtraction in that you're learning by taking away. You're removing thoughts, impulses, even learning. You're quieting rather than activating the mind, and therefore the activity is not so much to think about something, but rather to quiet the thought process to the extent that that natural capacity of mind, undisturbed, unprovoked, unscattered, suddenly opens to its full clarity. Now, sometimes this is, they use the analogy of the water or the lake, and that when the waves are on the surface of the lake, the stars and the moon above also ripple and change. You can't see them clearly, but when the waves settle, and there's no activity, absolutely nothing, then the stars and the moon and everything manifest very, very clearly, as if you could reach in and grab them. They're that close. So these are metaphors that I've used before to describe this process. Now, anybody who tries to do this realizes it's not as easy as it seems. I mean, you can get the posture right and get the breathing right, but then you might notice that when you sit like this, the mind is not like a calm, clear lake. It's more like, the ocean waves breaking on the shore one after the other. That's if you're lucky. A lot of times it's just like being in the middle of a hurricane or a typhoon, as the wind's just coming from everywhere and there's no stillness and there's no quietness. And sometimes when you start meditating, it seems like it's worse than when you're not meditating. And it's really not worse, it's the same. It's just that you never notice when you're not meditating. So the mind is just pretty much functioning the same, except when you're meditating, you're actually seeing what it's doing, as opposed to a normal activity when you're unaware and it's just jerking you around all left and right. And so the meditation process at the beginning is a real quiet struggle. I mean, we could come in here, you could all be sitting perfectly, you could all be doing the Chan breathing, and somebody could think there's nobody in the room. But the mind would be extremely busy, noisy, whatnot. But nobody would notice except you. So to say when you sit in meditation it's quieting the mind, it seems like an almost impossible task, but it's not. So the techniques that are given for this are meditation topics and meditation techniques, and I'll describe a couple tonight, and you can use any one you choose. You can do a little research on these, or you can talk to other people and find different techniques. Essentially, they all come down to the same thing. They're just expedient devices to try to hold focus and concentration to a single space or to a single-minded attention. Not that there's anything special about that single-minded attention in itself, but that it does provide the basis for observation of the movement of the mind in all its myriad states. So what you're basically doing is setting up a platform of observation in using a single-minded technique. And therefore, when you're doing the breathing, I mentioned you bring your breathing, the eyes regard the nose regards the mouth goes down to the dantian. Your breathing also drops down to that area. That's where you're breathing from, in that area. And your focus of concentration goes down to that area as well. So it's not going to your brain, it's not even going to your chest. It's as if you're trying to bring your field of observation or your quiet platform down to this area as well. And so that's the focus of your mindfulness, in the sense that that's where your mindfulness settles. And that allows your whole body to relax and be still. Now, when you use a technique, you could use counting your breath, for example. That's a very common technique. People will follow their breathing in and out perhaps 10 times. I'm not going to go over that. You can learn that technique, and it's fine. Other people use mantras, syllables that are repeated to hold the mind. Other people simply use a single syllable like Om. Some people will use, this is one I would recommend, but is the 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Hum. That's 6. And I can show you a technique tonight how to use that in the sense of creating that place of observation. So now, when you're doing it, when you're exercising it, there's nothing special or magical about that technique. The efficaciousness comes about through the result the technique brings, not the technique itself. So if you use the technique correctly, it's your use of it that's causing the quiet, calm stillness, not the thing itself. There's no magic in the device. Like, it's not like it's a magic mantra that just magically calms your mind and other mantras don't, but it's how you use it. So that's to sort of alert you. If you think it's not working, don't jump to another one and think another one will be more effective. It's the same mind. So no matter what you jump to, you'll be using the same mind with it and you'll have the same results. So it's just a technique that your mind uses to focus. Now, when you're using the technique, let's just investigate the Om Mani Padme Hum. It's 6 syllables. And what you can do is you can layer your breath on top of those syllables. This helps to integrate the breathing technique. So as you're sitting there, your first inhale through your nose is you layer the syllable Om over the top of it, silently. And as your exhale is Ma. And when you inhale, Ni. Pod is the exhale. Me is the inhale. Hung is the exhale. So you've done inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, 6 with 6 sounds. And then you repeat it again. And as your breathing relaxes, your body relaxes, it'll slow down. And you just simply do that as if that's the only task you have in front of you. Now, the busy monkey mind will just go bananas at this point. It'll say, this is boring, this is stupid, I got so many other more important things to think about, and they will intrude, okay? And what you're trying to do is to subdue the monkey mind long enough to get an insight on some other possibility that your mind could do. So all you simply do at that point is come back to the Om Mani Padme Hum and the breathing. It's very simple. It's like you don't have to do anything. You don't have to take out a hammer and smash the thoughts, or try to vacuum them out, or collect them and put them in a box for later, or anything like this. Simply ignore them. They're not important. I know we feel they're very important as they're happening. My thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my desires, my fears, all these are very important. If I stayed with them, I'd probably, no. Let them go. And the meaning behind this is that these are all conditioned dharmas. They're like dreams, illusions, bubbles, and shadows. They come and go, they come and go. In a day, you have millions of them perhaps. And even if you took note on them, which you couldn't, the next day would be another set. By the end of the week, you could not keep track of all the thoughts, feelings, emotions, and impulses that ran through. They just come and go, come and go. But they pull consciousness away from its own ground of understanding. So what you're doing with the meditation technique is you're simply bringing those 10,000 thoughts down to one. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Runs off, ignore it, come back. Now when I say ignore it, this is really important. You can follow it. You can investigate it. You can get into it, this fantasy, this thought, this fear, and you can gallop off with it, and it'll just keep going and going and going, and you realize, oh my gosh, it's gone. I've already gone with this. So you don't want to follow it. However interesting and compelling and fascinating it might seem, let it go. Now, you can say, yeah, but no, okay, just let it go for the 45 or an hour, okay? Because it'll come back. If it was that important and compelling, it'll be back. Don't worry. It's like a persistent salesman. It'll knock again and again and again. So for 45 minutes to an hour, let yourself do nothing else but nothing. Okay? I mean, it sounds really foolish, but allow yourself that luxury. Now, when it gallops off or it gets exciting and whatnot, you come back and you hold that ground again. And you'll find that it evaporates all by itself. It's really amazing. If you hold that ground again, it'll be gone. Now, something else, of course, will come to replace it. And you do it again, and again, and again, and again. After a while, it starts to settle. There's not so many, and they're not so compelling. And a kind of stillness develops. Now, the other thing that happens is you'll try to repress it, reject it, stomp it out, kill it. And you don't want to do that either. So, it's like, here's a thought, I'm going to get it, I'm going to stuff it down and, make sure it never comes up again. And that's the surest way to give it some energy. It's like a kid who thrives on negative attention. The more negative attention you give the kid, the more the kid negatively behaves. Because he's getting strokes, she's getting strokes. So don't stroke it, don't repress it, don't follow it, don't indulge it. Simply bring your observation back and you'll find it goes away by itself. So, between repressing it and rejecting it and indulging it and following it, there's a third possibility: simply, calmly observe its own rise and fall. So this time, you can see meditation as observation. Calm, dispassionate, just observation. Just looking at the field of your mind. Not weighing in left, not weighing in right, not repressing, not indulging, not even taking inventory. Just sort of staying in that space and watching the rise and fall. And what will come clear after a while is between the rise and fall of these thoughts and feelings and whatnot, you have a very, very short span where you don't have to do anything with it. And if you don't do anything with it, it just sort of calms by itself. And that moment, that little window of opportunity, gives you probably the only choice you have in terms of determining your life or destiny, because the rest of it is just driven by impulse, habit, and this firing of the mind constantly. So, the technique here of learning by subtraction or stilling the thoughts really just comes down to not yielding and not suppressing them, and just simply watching their rise and fall. And then it starts to settle, it starts to settle, it starts to settle. And in that settledness, things become clear. And it's said that when that mad mind stops, and this is interesting, when the mad mind stops, that very stopping is awakening. So it's not like when the mad mind stops, now I'm going to go after awakening. It's not a prelude to awakening, it is awakening. The very stopping is the awakening. And the very stopping, here's the paradox, opens up the full capacity of the mind now. So it's really, really quite ironic. It's instilling the thoughts, quieting the mind, that its deeper, fuller capacity is activated. And conversely, by activating and getting the mind really busy, that we become scattered and really gain nothing. Now, the only way to have this is to get the direct experience. Okay, the theory's out there, the texts are out there, they're clear, but until you taste that quietness that comes from simply just being quiet and the fullness and contentment of that moment, you'll never know it any other way except that moment when you get it. And then once you get it, that flavor, I think, is so delightful and irresistible that you'll come back to it again and again. It's probably the deepest, truest experience you'll ever have, and it's the gateway to your true self. And that's why it says, from this wonder to this wonder, your existence opens from this kind of calming and stilling, and your full nature then becomes manifest. So, on the meditation technique, don't get worried about it. Don't get fret about it. Don't worry what comes up. You may have Disney-like fantasies come up. I'm just going through some of the possibilities. You may have your new novel come up as you're sitting there, and you want to get out and write it. You may have Hello Kitty fantasies going on. I mean, or you may have, Stephen King novels. You may have horrible, fearsome things going through you. Freddie, all this kind of stuff going on. Don't pay any attention. Whether it's really attractive and alluring and exciting, or if it's fearful and anxiety-producing, ignore it. And it's amazing, there's nothing there. There is nothing there. If you ignore it and simply watch its rise and fall, it doesn't go anywhere. These are all ships with sails. And the only way they move is you blow on them. If you provide the wind, they will move. If there's no wind, they sink. That's it. They have nothing to them at all. They're dreams, illusions, bubble shadows, and the only way they get any kind of purchase, the only way they get any hold, is if we feed them, we entertain them, we nurture them, we love them, we fondle them, and we do this whole thing. Otherwise, they just fall apart. There's nothing there. But in that nothingness, there is something, and that's called the fullness of your true self. So that's why it says, return the light, illumine within, and discover the fullness of yourself. This means your true self. So that emptying out, I'm careful here now, the emptying out of all this stuff does not lead you to the void. It leads you to the fullness of your essential nature, which is whole and complete, lacking nothing. You're home. And it's like infinitely more entertaining and fun than anything else. People will think when you do this, you're getting kind of dull. Because you're not going out, you're not hanging, you're not getting drunk, you're not getting stoned, you're not like yourself, and yet you're really happy. You're really full, and you're really content just to sort of be in the space. It's like when you were 4 or 5 years old, just in the backyard. In fact, that's what happened to Buddha. He was very young. He sat under a rose apple tree, entered samadhi, and thought, whoa, this is really cool. When he was a kid, this before he had any training. And that was the basis of his pursuing profound enlightenment later as he grew up. He went back to that moment and said, it's so natural, it's so accessible, it's so within the human, that even a little kid like me can quickly enter it just under this tree. Now, don't think you need a tree to do this, okay? Don't go out and say, what kind of tree? I'll put the tree in my backyard. It's just a space to let go, release your hold. And so what you're doing in meditation is letting go. Letting go. You're not getting. I want to get enlightened. You're not going to get enlightened. You can't get enlightened. There's nothing to get. You can become enlightened. You can awaken, but you can't get it. So what you're doing in meditation, that's why you relax the body. That's why you relax the breathing. That's why you empty the mind. You're letting go. You're not grasping, grabbing after anything. We are by nature, according to the sutras, what makes us ordinary and confused is we grab and grasp all the time, everywhere, even in our sleep. From the moment we're born, and if you read the text clearly, even before we're born, it's grasping and grabbing and grasping and grabbing, and we go through our whole life grasping, grabbing, grasping, grabbing, grasping, grabbing, until finally it's over. So what you're doing in meditation is letting go. Stop grasping, stop grabbing, relax. And in that, it all begins to open up and return. So, I'm doing more theory than technique because if you understand the theory, then whatever technique you can use will be effective. If you know when you're meditating, you're not supposed to get anything, you're not supposed to be after anything, you're not supposed to be hungry for anything, you're just supposed to be letting go, constantly letting go. Let go, release your hold, the wondrous manifest, okay? That's how simple it is. But letting go is not easy because we're almost conditioned to grab and grasp and get, right? So that technique, if you understand it, then used to let go, not grasp, not reject, not push down, not pick up, simply observe the rise and fall, and that snowstorm will start to settle. The flakes will become smaller. the intensity will settle down, the wind will settle down. In a sense, I think of it as, my grandmother used to have this round ball, and it had a church in it and a little tree and a little village and everything. And you'd shake it up like this, right? And then it would be all swirling. And then you wait, and then pretty soon it would all settle down again and be clear. And so mostly we live inside the ball, and it's always like this. We're always moving and shaking in it, like, whoa, 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 whoa. And if by letting it just be still, you can see it's just totally clear and calm. The mind is the same way. It functions best when there's nothing that it's grabbing, holding on to, attaching. It's very unencumbered and clean and pure. Okay? So whatever technique you can use Aumi Tofu, Guanyin Pusa, you can use Sanskrit, you can use Pali, you can use Chinese, you can use Swahili. It doesn't matter what you use as long as you hold it with the idea of not moving away from that ground, observing the rise and fall. So whatever brings you back to that. It could be hickory dickory dock, I don't care. I mean, really, it's not magic in the mantra, the magic is in your attention that you bring. So it only works if you are diligent with it. And if you're diligent with it, it will work all by itself. Now what happens is, after you get a feel for that, see, this is where the Sixth Patriarch's going on this. This is just training because we become so lost, so muddled, that we can't really, unless we cross our legs, do this with our body and breathing, even hope to get a glimpse of the quiet mind. But once you get a flavor for that, and once you get a feel from that, you can get off your meditation cushion and start moving through the world again without being confused and scattered. Because once you get the center of balance, once you get the equanimity, and you know how it works, you not only can deal with your inner states of thoughts, feelings, emotions, but the external becomes clear. What's important, what isn't important, what to attend to, what not to attend to, how to do it. And that's called free and easy movement. That's what he means by liberation. Liberation is not something you get sitting on a meditation cushion. Liberation means 24/7 in all your activities. You are flowing freely, aware, unattached, responding, and what do they say, everywhere engaged, nowhere attached, this kind of thing. And that's really the goal. But we have to start someplace, so we start in the gym at the monastery where we sit for 45 minutes and just try to get the monkey, in a room. Okay? So I'm not going to recommend any other technique, and you're free to try whichever you choose. But that's basically the theory of the sitting. And the reason I say this is because if you can understand this really, really clearly, you won't have trouble in your meditation. Most trouble in meditation comes because people are seeking something. They want something from it. They're approaching it instrumentally rather than intrinsically. You approach it intrinsically, it's like it's of its own worth and merit. Just sitting is enough. You approach it instrumentally, it's like, what do I get? What do I get? When do I get it? And that very mind is the mind that you want to stop in meditation. So if you use meditation to get, it's so contradictory, it's laughable. But still, even when we meditate, it's hard to still that mind, and we start calculating, what are we getting out of this? And then meditation becomes just like everything else. Okay? So just do it because it's worth doing in and of itself. If nothing else, for 45 minutes, an hour, nobody can find you. And having no one able to find you for 45 minutes to an hour, believe me, is one of the most, I think, highest forms of wealth. Okay, any questions on that? Yes?
I find that sometimes it's like the hardest stuff to ignore, not just kind of let go of is like really boring stuff, just a very mundane day to day.
Mm-hmm.
The stronger emotions, they come galloping, but it's the like more subtle daily, like images of things I said earlier, like when I ate, whatever. It's not really a question. I don't know if you have a comment to all that boring stuff. It's so subtle, but always.
Well, my mind is so wild and so untamable that I'm never bored. I always manage to find, I always go in there to some video store in the back of my eighth consciousness. Oh, I haven't seen this one yet. And I put it in, and off I go. Or I wonder what the Tushita heaven's like. Ooh, and off I But actually, boredom's a good sign. So every once in a while when I get bored, I used to say to them, hey, it's boring. Oh, that's good. And why is that good? Well, basically, you're detoxing from greed. So the opposite side of greed and longing and constant craving, when you try to put a hold on that, the initial feeling you have is boredom because the fix has always been there. There's been an urge, a fix. I'm hungry, I grab. I want to see something, I go get it. The boredom comes because the urge, which is a habituation, and actually, if you get into neurologically, it's driven by a whole neurotransmitter system. This is very interesting. I told you last week, this: when you win the lottery, when you get high, when you shop, and I think what the other one is, they're all running on the same neural patterns, and they're still generating the same neurotransmitters. So boredom is a healthy kind of withdrawal symptom from constant intoxication by thirst and grabbing and excitement. So it's the first phase of stillness. But you have to then empty out the boredom as well. But to see what it is, it's not like nothing's happening, it's your interpretation of nothing happening coming from, but when things happen, I'm excited, right? I get something. So the ungrabbing initially feels like boredom. But it's just an initial feeling. If you can analyze it and see what it's really about having an habituated fix to excitement. And the problem with that is you keep having to up the ante to stay excited and stay excited. And excitement is tiring. It really is. True sitting, when you sit really quietly for an hour, you're full of energy. In fact, you're so full of energy, you better tell people around you to watch out because you're really busting with energy. You returned it. But excitement, you come home, you're dead, you're drained. You fall asleep on Bart from a night of excitement before you even get back. So the boredom is really the other side of the thirsting. And when you see it that way, you have a different angle on it. Okay? But boredom's good. Okay. Anybody else? Let's go to the text. We're on chapter 3, Doubts and Questions. And we're starting at the bottom. The prefect has just asked Hui Neng, Master Hui Neng, how about this great emperor who made donations and offerings and vegetarian feast and did all these good things, but was a little surprised to hear that there was no merit and virtue in this. Prefect Hui doesn't understand this, and he asks. And the master says it's true. What Bodhidharma said to this emperor there was no merit and virtue in that. And then the master answers, and it says, he explains here, he says, there truly was no merit and virtue. Do not doubt the words of the ancient sage, referring to Bodhidharma. Emperor Wu's attitude was wrong. He did not understand the correct Dharma. Building temples, sponsoring Sangha ordinations, making donations, hosting vegetarian feasts, all of this is called seeking blessings. But blessings should not be mistaken for merit and virtue. Merit and virtue are to be found in the Dharma body, not in cultivating blessings. Okay, so the thing, first of all, to point out, he's not saying what was done was bad. The supporting of the Sangha, the vegetarian offerings, all of this, he's not saying it's bad, it's good. But it generates only blessings. It's a sort of, you do good and good returns to you. It's a very simple karmic principle. So that if you're kind and generous and don't harm life, the return is almost in kind. You will not be harmed. The texts, for example, say that if you take life, constantly take life, in various forms of killing, human life, animal life, you're disrespectful, you have no reverence for life in many of its forms, it causes you to lose your human life and be born in other paths of existence. But it says even if you're born as a human, you have two difficulties. One difficulty associated with that is you get diseases very early, young in your life, a lot of ailments and afflictions, and also you get sick and die younger than you would. So by curbing and crimping others' lives, quid pro quo, yours becomes curbed and crimped in return. This is the simple notion of karma. And he's talking here, so if you do all these things, blessings will come to you. What kind of blessings? Well, maybe you will draw near, you'll be born in a situation where there is Sangha to listen to. Oh, because you supported Sangha, so now you're born into a situation where there's Sangha to listen to. You may have a lot of affinities with spiritual people because you supported them in one life or so forth. There's all kinds of blessings that come. But he's saying this is pretty spiritual material. I mean, I'm sort of mixing the words here. It's good. It makes life interesting and enjoyable and meaningful, but it's really not what he would call virtue, merit and virtue, which he says is something that is very deep and going into actually the mind ground, into the Dharma body, what he's referring to as Dharma body here. That is what real merit and virtue is. That's the ground that leads to full awakening. That's the ground that leads to breaking through the human suffering and getting to that next realm of, actually what we call reaching nirvana. He says the blessings return, but it's just an exchange. And it's exchange. You have a good life, you have good surroundings. If you were generous, you're blessed with material things and so forth. If you don't harm life, you have good health, and so on and so forth. If you don't abuse your body's healthy and wholesome and, works, blah, blah, blah. It's, you can say, well, I don't believe in past lives. Well, just look at it in this life then, okay? You don't have to extend the parameters to past lives and future lives. Just say, in this life, if you take care of yourself, you don't abuse your body, and you don't cheat people, and you don't hurt people, generally you're in a pretty good situation where that comes back to you. Not always, but generally it's the case, right? So you just extend this over time. But that's not what he's talking about here. He's saying those kinds of beneficent acts of giving and charity create these blessings, these good things that return. But he said merit and virtue are found in the Dharma body. By Dharma body, it means it's a body that's perfected in Dharma. Now, of course, it's one of the three bodies of the Buddha, and we can get into that. That's very complicated, and you can get into lists and what this means. But essentially what it's talking about is the Buddha nature. It's the Buddha, small b, potential of your own, and it's universal. So this Dharma body, this body of Dharma, is that innate potential or that fundamental Buddha here called the original, essential, true nature. So the Dharma body is that ground. It's the mind ground. It's the ground of your own nature. That's the Dharmakaya. And the Buddha actually said that embodying it is the Dharma body. When you embody the teachings and you actually put them into practice, you make them real in your own person, you're in the Dharma body, you're in the Dharmakaya. That's the Dharmakaya. It's not like it's some Buddha out there. Like next to Mars there's a Dharmakaya, and then next to this there's another body, blah, blah, blah. This is actually referring to innate potential we have for full awakening. That's our Dharma body. And that's what he's talking about. That's where you cultivate virtue. It's there. There's a text that actually says the Buddha, as he was leaving, he made this statement, if from this time, after I leave, he said, if from this time on my disciples transmit my teachings, these teachings, and practice them, then the Dharma body or the Dharmakaya, the Tathagata, is always existing and never gone. So you can see it's not referring to some distant Buddha, it's referring to these teachings embodied, that's the Dharma body. And that's where he's saying you have to really put your effort and cultivate. It's not wrong to do these things, be generous and do charity and so forth. It's really quite a good thing to do. But if you really want to get total liberation and really get into the depth of your being and know yourself truly, then you have to cultivate at this level. Now the question is, what do you do there? Well, you make more offerings. So you're not making enough. If you make it really high end, then you get no. I want. So let's go on a little bit here. He says, he continues, because the question would arise, then how do you cultivate the Dharma body? Seeing one's essential nature is merit. Equanimity is virtue. To be flexible and unimpeded thought after thought, always cognizant of the true and wondrous workings of one's original nature, this is called merit and virtue. What he's describing is this unimpeded functioning of our true mind in a very pragmatic and immediate way, thought after thought. Are you flexible and unimpeded? Are you not grasping, not attaching? Are you not afflicted, angry, jealous, greedy? Always cognizant, always aware of this wondrous functioning of your true mind. That's merit and virtue. And then he goes on, he's more specific. He says, inwardly, if you are like this, your mind is humble. This is merit. And outwardly, your behavior is respectful. You're not putting people down. I mean, you can say this is kind of profound, but he always comes down to, this is very human. Are you belittling people? Are you making fun of people? In your mind, are you constantly thinking, I'm better? Blah, blah, blah. He's saying, nobody sees this. You didn't say anything, but you're no merit and virtue. You're actually harming your merit and virtue. This is called the thief within the virtue. It looks virtuous. For example, you greet everybody pleasantly, you throw parties, you give scholarships and so forth, but you really think, below heaven and above earth, only I am truly honored. It's really, I'm the center of this, and other people are either stupid or they're slow. Even in your classes, you do the same thing. You're kind of sitting there and think, oh, God, there they go again, stupid, blah, blah. This is not respectful. Now, we think respectful is an external, thing like, who's the famous person with the manners, the woman from the 50s and 60s, that you learn manners from? Nobody under 50 would know what the hell we're talking about here. But Emily Post. Yeah, and so if you wanted to know what to do when you went home to your boyfriend's parents, or you're hosting a Thanksgiving dinner, or your coming out party, she would give you manners on what to wear, how to hold your hands, what button to go up to and what button to leave open, and what colors to wear, and then what to say to people. If you're going to the White House, she would tell you how to greet if you're going to Queen Elizabeth. And so Emily Post had all these respectful little things you go through. But he's saying, if you have this in your heart, you don't have to learn all that. It will just emanate naturally if you respect people. So it's not an external show of something. It's an actual internal sense of everybody has the same nature as me. I have my hang-ups. They have their hang-ups. Who am I to put anybody down, or so on and so forth? You actually feel this. It's not like, okay, I better contemplate that now because this person's really a jerk. No, you don't. It's just coming naturally. Okay? So establishing the myriad dharmas from your own essential nature is merit. Yet keeping your essential mind free from wrong is virtue. This is a combo. This is not obvious what this means. But he means here, you're able to, establishing the myriad dharmas means everything you do is free from wrong, and it's coming from this essential nature. This is talking again about the expression of expedient means. So, in your interactions with people, everything you say, everything you manifest, everything you think, you set up something, you start a project, you start a school, you start a business. If it's established from this place, it's in that realm and it's unencumbered. It is merit. And because there's no self-seeking or hidden agenda behind this, this is virtue. Not departing from that essential nature, that's merit. And actively responding without being affected is virtue. Now, this is very important because we go over this in many of our classes. Actively responding, you cannot zone out. You cannot say, I heard him say, we can do it on the cushion, we should do 24/7, so you walk around like a zombie samadhi, or a samadhi zombie, which is, and you don't pay attention to anybody, and you're pretending that you're not seeing evil, you're not hearing evil, and you're not interacting with evil. You're pure and unmoving. And this is not what he's talking about. He says you're interacting but not affected. You're not moved off your center. To be affected is to be turned off the center. But it doesn't mean you're not aware and active. This is tough, but it's also the best test. Because if you think you got it, all you have to do is go into some situation where nobody else is manifesting it, and then see if you can be thus unmoving in that situation. And if you can, it might be close. But often that's, where it goes. It's easy to do on the cushion, relatively easy, but not when you're off the cushion. And that's what he's talking about here. So he's already talking about something. Merit and virtue manifest in a whole deportment and a way you behave in your life with people. There's no attaching, there's no clinging, there's no harming, there's no hidden agenda, there's no manipulation. You're not treating people as objects of your desire. Huh? Oh, yeah. It's sort of like most people relate to each other as implements for getting their agenda. They become objects of their desire or impediments to their desire. But that's how the relationships go. You don't see people intrinsically, you see them instrumentally. This is not what he's talking about. He's saying in the realm of merit and virtue, you see everybody almost as if they were yourself. This is why it's called being one with everyone is great compassion. It's not like I feel pity for them. That's not what it's talking about. It's actually an empathy that doesn't have any bounds whatsoever. That kind of immediacy. He says, if you would seek the merit and virtue of the Dharma body, just live by these principles. This is genuine merit and virtue. Okay, yes?
What does it mean to see someone intrinsically?
To see someone what?
Intrinsically rather than extrinsically.
To see someone intrinsically means you see them as you see your true self. And it's almost like you could get simplistically and say, do not do unto others as you would not do unto you. Okay? You see them as another living being just like you who has hopes and dreams and aspirations and really has the same potential for full awakening that you do. You don't see them as lesser than you, and you don't see them as greater than you, and you certainly don't see them as obstacles to your development, and you don't see them as instruments for your fulfilling your wishes and your desires, right? So it's very equal, and you're not seeking and attaching and grasping, and you're not rejecting. So it's just a wonderful way to be. See, because sometimes Buddhists think like, I'm a Buddhist, and hi, how are you? Oops, I looked at you. Or you're a man, you're a woman, you're young, it's like, that's not Buddhist. You don't push away people. What you do is get rid of seeing people as objects of your desire, your fears, or whatnot. You stop objectifying them and projecting onto them these things, and then you just see them as they are. They're just people like you. And so if you're not seeking, not grasping, not attaching, you're in that ground, it's very easy to be with people. And people naturally feel that vibe. It's really interesting. You don't even have to say something. People can feel what's going on. If you're fishing, if you're manipulating, if you're hitting on them, or you're wanting to be hit on, and so on and so forth. We think it's really subtle. It's not. Some people are laughing at me going, what do you mean by that? There are differences in seeing and hearing, but I'm just telling you. Especially people who are observing it. People are going, oh my God, look at, and the two, they're, they're clueless. Well, it's not blind. It's very obvious, okay? You don't even need to have eyes to see it. When you're doing that, it creates a static, and it's just like a static in your own mind field, your own mind ground that's disturbed by that. Already that's disturbed, and then you go out and you disturb other people's mind ground. Okay? You're constantly intruding. I want you, I don't want you. I love you, I don't love you. You made me happy, you didn't make me happy. Blah, blah, blah. This goes on all the time. And we're still treating people not as, well, who are you essentially? Are you here as my, fulfillment? Or are you here as my, no. You're just another living being trying to be the best you can. So, in a sense, you think, oh, then you have no relationships. No, you do. You have very, very profound and easy relationships. You can have relationships with anybody at this level, with children, with adults, with old people, because there's no grasping, there's no rejecting. And so you're fully free to enjoy them for their full potential and let them enjoy you for the full potential and learn and whatnot. And as long as there's no grasping and attaching, it's a really pretty cool way to be with people. The problems come is with the projection and the grasping and so forth. And you're not lonely, okay? I'm just saying, like, oh, then there's nobody special. Everybody's special. You don't, because that one person special is then the grasping and shrinking it down to this one sort of thing. And of course, hang on to it while you can, but you can't. You pick a rose and it starts to die, okay? It's the way things are. So it's really, he's not talking about the end of relationships. He's not talking about not having emotion. He's saying freely responding, but not negatively affected in any way. You're completely open and flexible and aware and available. And yet, there's no, I was thinking of my teacher the other day, and it's like, he never had any friends. And yet, he was friendly with and to everyone. It was really interesting. He was very, very happy. But you couldn't say, oh, there's his best friend, or there's his partner, or his, what do you call it? What's the word they use now? Spirit? Significant other? Yeah, significant other, that's another one. Or my spirit. Soulmate. Huh? Soulmate, yeah. He didn't have any soulmates or anything like that. And yet, completely relaxed, completely happy, completely available. A stranger could come up, a kid come up. We were sitting here one time and these two Hells Angels came up. And I was like, we were totally freaked out because they were really hostile. And, yeah. He invited them in and they had tea together. And it wasn't put on. And then they came outside and they had each other's, my teacher's arm around one Hells Angel, the Hells Angel. And it's like, you're pretty good. We'll stop by, I don't know about these two weirdos, referring to myself and somebody else, but you're pretty cool. And it wasn't a put on, it wasn't an act. He genuinely just had that unattached, unbound, liberated heart. And so relationships were everywhere. Even alone in nature, he was never like alone. We broke down on the Highway 5. We had to leave him on the side of the road and hitchhike with somebody else to go get a tire to come back. And we thought, oh my gosh, here he's on Highway 5, and what's he going to do and whatnot. We came back, and I this image is in my mind. He was sitting on the side with the tall grass blowing in the wind. And he was just sitting there with his eyes closed, smiling on Highway 5, alone with nothing. And I'm all frantic worried about him. And he said, oh, okay, that's fine, no problem. So if you can keep this image in your mind, you won't get into some kind of repressive, knee-jerk, mark, I'm a Buddhist. How do you know I'm a Buddhist? I don't look at bad things. I don't listen, No. You just relax. You don't have to, there's nothing bad or good to look or listen to unless you project it out there and make it something like that. It's just really simple. It's really easy. So this is what they mean by wuxiang, without marks. It's a markless quality. But you can't act it. You can't pretend it. It comes from what he's saying, from merit and virtue. When your heart is unattached, unbound, you're not seeking, you don't want anything, you're not fearing, you see everything just as it is. You're just freely flowing and open and unencumbered. And you're really fun to be around. And if you're not around, it's still fun. You see, because you're coming, this is the fullness of yourself. This is the fullness of yourself. And you don't need anything else. That doesn't mean you reject anything else either. So it was really amazing. At times when tears were appropriate, there were tears. When laughter was appropriate, there was laughter. When silence was appropriate, there was silence. Everything was done according to what was appropriate. Never too much, never too little. And it didn't take, let me look, what's appropriate, Emily Post says, no, just flows naturally. This is this quality that's being talked about here. So, I'll stop here. Darn, I had a story, and I was going to tell you the story because I thought, here it fits, and it fit here because it fit here where I said I was going to tell the story and did. Now I have two places where it fits, and I still haven't told the story. So, next week, I will tell the story. Well, you know, it's after 9, and although some people might enjoy this, other people are going, man, I gotta get out of here. The restaurant closed 9:30. So we'll stop here, and I'll promise I'll tell you the story next week. It's a story from the Therigatha, which is the stories of the women disciples of the Buddha, and this one is one I particularly like. But if I did it in a hurry, it'd be like swallowing the date whole, and then you wouldn't know the flavor. So let me bring it up next week to illustrate. But I hope you'll take away in your mind the image of a cultivator of the way and the image of this Dharma body as something very positive, bright, free-flowing, unattached, and something you are intrinsically attracted to because it's not hitting at you. It's not putting anything on you. It's not pulling anything from you. It's just making you feel more fully yourself. That kind of friendship, that kind of vibe is really what this is talking about. So you have to think about it in these terms and you take it out of its metaphysical. Okay? Any other points to bring up?
Marty, I would like to correct some information I provide wrongly last week, right? Because last week when Marty asked me about the poet Tao Yuanming, when was he born? And I said Tang Dynasty. It was wrong. The correct answer is Dongjing Dynasty.
Okay, now, everybody know what we're talking about? Last week I gave a poem, a famous poem called The Return. It's a poet who says, I'm going home, my fields and gardens are choked with weeds, why shouldn't I go back? And then my Chinese is terrible, so I asked her, how do you pronounce Tao Yuanming? And I still don't have it right. How's Tao Yuanming?
Tao Yuanming.
Right, and that's what I said. And and then I asked her when he was, because we thought it was the same, but it's not the same dynasty.
No.
Earlier or later?
Tang is between 7th century and 10th century, but Dongjing is earlier.
Earlier, okay.
5th century.
5th century.
Right, so it's earlier.
And is this guy pretty cool?
Tao Yuanming?
Yeah, you know
Very
anything?
cool.
Very cool.
The Emperor Liang's son, Zhao Ming Prince, appraised Tao Yuanming, highly appraised him. So
Whoa.
there's a connection.
Very
Emperor
good.
and Tao Yuanming. Very interesting.
Yeah, and you can see this tradition is still alive. If you watch the presidential debates, you'll see them praise poets and things like this. It's really wonderful, just like in the past. Oh, there I go being sarcastic. Okay, any announcements?
Like usual, tomorrow.
You see, the thing is, the microphone you're talking into, you're doing it adequate for 100,000 people to hear, but the people here don't hear it. So you actually got to shout into the mic.
Okay. Tomorrow we have the same schedule like usual. 7:30 in the evening is the Avatamsaka Sutra lecture. On Monday is Buddhist from the Modern Mind by Doug Powers. And all classes is like the same.
Okay.
Mark, next Monday is Confucius' birthday and also Teacher's Day.
Confucius' birthday and Teacher's Day.
Oh, there's the moon festival.
There's a moon festival.
No, Sunday.
Sunday's a moon festival. Well, I mean, for those people in Berkeley who have never heard about it, I can see their minds are reeling now. The moon festival in Berkeley. So we get nude and go around in a circle and howl at the moon, or what is it? What's the moon festival?
The biggest moon in the year.
It's the middle.
According to
Okay, but what's special about the moon in the middle of August?
according to the lunar calendar, that is the moon that you see the biggest.
It's the biggest moon.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're celebrating a big moon?
Yeah, that's how you eat moon cake. To celebrate.
You eat moon cakes.
Yeah, there's a legend behind it. About the moon.
Okay, so tell you what, next Friday, I would ask you, bring a nice poem from Tao Yuanming, and next Friday, you explain what the moon cakes are? Or bring some moon cakes, yeah. Okay, I'm game. Bring some moon cakes.
There are actually two celestial external events that are occurring, the moon is the closest that it gets to the Earth and therefore is the biggest.
Aha.
And
So it actually doesn't change size. Oh,
saying, and I don't know if we can see it from the West Coast, is there will be a lunar eclipse.
Yeah. Orange moon.
But I don't know if we can see it from here. We were in Colorado and heard that the eclipse will peak at 8, a little bit after 8 o'clock there. So it'll be a little after 7 here, I think.
so we can have our moon cakes, watch the eclipse?
So it would be about the same time here.
Yeah, whenever you see it. But that is in 2 days,
That may be.
not next Friday.
Okay, so those of you who feel controlled by celestial bodies, and there are more than a few in this group. I know this because I get emails from people also telling me, besides the eclipse, and besides overdosing on moon cakes, watch out for Mercury retrograde. Oh, see, now, some people are going, oh my gosh, really, that explains why I got in a fight with my mother, why my car broke down, and so on and so forth. Maybe, maybe not. But without pushing that, can we have moon cake? Are there moon cakes tomorrow?
We'll see.
How many people have never had a moon cake?
Most of them are not vegetarian.
Most
Most of them.
most moon cakes are not vegetarian. Oh.
They have an egg yolk inside the moon.
No, there are a lot of vegetarian mooncake. Yeah,
There's now probably vegan moon cakes, right?
they are. Yes.
Now they're vegan moon cakes.
No eggs, no yolk. Yeah. Very easy to get, just from the Chinese supermarket, range 99.
How's that different than cardboard? But that's okay. Well, let's do the transference and get out of astrology and mooncakes here, and then. But next week, maybe a little bit about the moon. Why the moon festival is significant? Is it a Buddhist thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
National holiday.
Okay. All right, let's transfer before we get mooned out here. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Ding li san bao.